The transport ship descended through the purple clouds of Valdoria Prime, its engines humming with the familiar sound of human technology. Inside the vessel, a single passenger sat alone in the dim cabin. His name was Callan Thornwood, and he had not seen this world for 100 years. Callan looked human enough to most observers. He stood tall with sharp features and eyes that held centuries of memory. But beneath his worn jacket, his ears came to slight points. He was half-elf, born from the union of a human soldier and an elven princess during the First Contact Wars. Both species had rejected him. The elves called him Tainted Blood. The humans called him Spy. Now he was returning to the place where it all began. The ship landed at the Valdoria Central Port, a massive structure built from white crystal and living wood. Elven architecture had not changed in the century he had been away. The same tall spires reached toward the sky. The same ancient trees grew through the platforms and walkways. Everything looked exactly as he remembered it. Callan stepped off the ship and felt the warm air touch his face. The smell of blossoming flowers mixed with the metallic scent of starship fuel. Two worlds meeting in one place. This was what Valdoria had become after the peace treaties. A mixing point between human space and the Elven Confederation. He walked through the port with his hood pulled low. His boots made soft sounds on the crystal floor. Around him, elves moved in their flowing robes, their perfect faces showing no emotion. They did not look at him directly, but he felt their awareness. They always knew when something different walked among them. A young elf woman bumped into him near the exit gate. She looked up with annoyance, ready to speak harsh words. Then her golden eyes went wide. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She stepped backward quickly, nearly falling over her own feet. "The butcher," she whispered. "The butcher of Moonfall Valley." Callan said nothing. He simply walked past her and out into the city streets. News traveled fast among the elves. By the time Callan reached the central market district, crowds were already gathering to watch him pass. Mothers pulled their children close. Old veterans touched the weapons hidden beneath their robes. Everyone remembered. 100 years was nothing to a species that lived for thousands. They remembered Moonfall Valley. They remembered the night when human forces had broken through the elven defensive lines. They remembered the half-breed commander who led the assault. Callan Thornwood had killed 3,000 elven soldiers in a single night. He had used human weapons and human tactics against beings who thought themselves superior. He had shown them that they could bleed. He had shown them that they could die. The war ended shortly after, not because the elves surrendered, but because both sides realized the cost was too high. Callan was exiled as part of the peace agreement. The elves demanded it. The humans allowed it. Neither side wanted to claim him anymore. Now he was back. Callan walked to the old embassy building where he had once served. It still stood, though the human flags were gone. A group of elven guards blocked his path at the entrance. Their silver armor gleamed in the afternoon light. Their faces showed the cold hatred the elves reserved for their greatest enemies. "You are not welcome here, half-blood," the lead guard said. His hand rested on his plasma blade. "Leave this world before we make you leave." Callan reached into his jacket slowly. The guards tensed, ready for violence. But he only pulled out a small data chip. He held it up for them to see. "I have business with the High Council," he said. His voice was calm and steady. "Official business. Sanctioned by both the Human Alliance and the Confederation." The guards exchanged uncertain looks. One of them took the chip and inserted it into his scanner. His eyes narrowed as he read the information. Then his face went pale. "Let him through," the guard said quietly. The other guards protested, but their leader silenced them with a sharp gesture. They stepped aside, and Callan walked into the building. Inside, the embassy had been converted into a museum. Displays showed the history of the First Contact Wars. Weapons, armor, and documents filled glass cases along the walls. Callan stopped before one display and stared at it for a long moment. It contained a torn human uniform stained with old blood. His uniform, from the night at Moonfall Valley. "They put it here to remember what humans can do," a voice said behind him. Callan turned to face the speaker. An old elf stood there, leaning on a walking staff. His face was marked with scars that ran from his forehead to his chin. One of his eyes was missing, replaced by a crystal implant that glowed softly blue. "General Velen," Callan said. "You survived. Barely." The old elf moved closer, his staff clicking on the floor. "You took my eye that night. You took my son. You took 3,000 of my soldiers." He stopped just a few feet away. "And now you dare to return." "I return because I must," Callan said. "There are things happening that require my particular skills." Valen's remaining eye burned with hatred. What could possibly require the skills of a butcher? "The protection of your people." Silence filled the room. Valen stared at him, searching for deception. Finding none, his expression shifted to confusion. "Explain," he demanded. Callan gestured toward a private room nearby. Velen hesitated, then nodded. They walked together into the small chamber, and the door closed behind them. Security screens activated, blocking all sound and surveillance. 12 days ago, Callan began, human intelligence detected an unknown fleet entering the Outer Rim territories. These ships did not match any known species. They destroyed a mining station with 4,000 workers. No survivors, no communication, just death. Velen listened without expression. 6 days ago, Callan continued, they attacked an Elven research outpost near the Varach Nebula. Same result. Complete destruction. No survivors. Now Valen's face showed concern. "We received no reports of any attack, because there was no one left to report. The attackers wiped out everything. Ships, communications, personnel. All gone." Callan pulled out another data chip and placed it on the table. "This contains all the intelligence we have gathered. The Human Alliance is offering full cooperation. We believe these invaders are heading toward Valdoria." Velen took the chip, but did not look at it. His eye remained fixed on Callan. "Why you? Why send the one person guaranteed to cause unrest among my people?" "Because I know how to fight," Callan said simply. "I know how to win against impossible odds. I proved that 100 years ago. You proved you could kill elves. I proved I could kill anyone who threatened what I was sworn to protect. Back then, I protected humanity." Callan leaned forward. "Now I protect both our peoples. The Alliance and the Confederation need to work together, or we will all die. Separately, we are weak. Together, we have a chance." Valen was quiet for a long time. The old general had every reason to refuse. He had spent a century hating the half-breed who had destroyed his army. He had dreamed of revenge. He had planned for the day when he could finally face his enemy again. But he was also a soldier. He understood duty. He understood sacrifice. And he understood that some threats were bigger than personal hatred. "The High Council will never accept this," Velen said finally. "They will see your presence as an insult. Then make them understand," Callan replied. "You have influence. You have respect. They will listen to you. And if I choose not to help, if I decide to let old wounds remain open," Callan met his gaze without flinching, "then your people will die. My people will die. Everything we fought for 100 years ago will mean nothing. Is that what you want? Is that the legacy you wish to leave?" Valen's hand tightened on his staff. The crystal eye flickered as emotions warred within him. Memories of Moonfall Valley played through his mind. The screams of dying soldiers, the smoke and fire, the half-breed standing among the bodies, his human weapons still hot from killing. But there were other memories too. Memories of peace. Memories of his grandchildren growing up in a galaxy without war. Memories of hope that the future might be better than the past. "I will speak to the council," Velen said at last. "But I make no promises. That is all I ask." They left the private room together. Outside, a crowd had gathered in the museum. Elves of all ages stood watching, their faces filled with fear and anger. They had heard that the butcher was here. They wanted to see him. They wanted to understand why their government had allowed this monster to return. Callan walked among them without fear. He had faced worse hatred. He had survived worse danger. These were civilians, not soldiers. They would not attack him here. But one voice rose above the murmur of the crowd. A young elf stepped forward, his fists clenched at his sides. He could not have been more than 200 years old, barely an adult by elven standards. "You killed my great-grandfather at Moonfall Valley," the young elf shouted. "You destroyed my family. You took everything from us." Callan stopped and faced him. The crowd went silent, waiting. "Yes," Callan said quietly. "I did." The young elf seemed surprised by the admission. He had expected denial. He had expected excuses. Instead, he got simple truth. "I killed many that night," Callan continued. "I followed my orders. I protected my people. I did what soldiers do in war." He paused. "I am not proud of every death, but I am not ashamed of my duty." "How can you say that?" the young elf demanded. "How can you stand there and speak of duty when you have so much blood on your hands?" Callan looked around at the watching crowd, at the faces filled with pain and loss, at the generations who had grown up hearing stories of the butcher. "Because duty is all I have," he said. "I am half of two worlds and welcome in neither. I have no home. I have no family. I have only the work I do and the people I try to protect." He turned back to the young elf. "Your great-grandfather died fighting for what he believed in. I respect that. I honor that. And now I am here to fight for something bigger than old hatred. I am here to save both our peoples from a threat that does not care about our history." The young elf stared at him, uncertain. The anger was still there, but something else had joined it. Something that might have been understanding. "Come with me," Callan said to him. "Come to the council meeting. Hear what I have to say. Then decide if your hatred is worth more than your future." He turned and walked toward the council chambers. Behind him, after a long moment of hesitation, the young elf followed. And then, one by one, others began to follow as well. Curiosity overcoming fear. Hope overcoming hate. The butcher of Moonfall Valley had returned. But perhaps this time, he would build something instead of destroying it. Perhaps this time, his dark deeds would be the foundation for something new. Something that neither humans nor elves could achieve alone. War was coming, and Callan Thornwood would face it the same way he faced everything else. Alone if necessary. But perhaps not alone after all.